Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Some patients who were due to undergo surgeries today and Monday were told by the health ministries to stay home, keep calm, and take some painkillers, as there was some disruption to the provision of health services by virtue of the industrial action taken by members of the Association of Government Medical Consultants. They say they're not feeling so well because of the way the government has treated them regarding the payment of retroactive payments that the government already signed off on and which they were led to believe they would be getting, but now are told that they won't be getting till the next fiscal year. The doctor says, well, you can't value us and do this to us. We don't feel well. We're not going to work. And for 2 days, that has been the condition. Will it stretch into a third day, this industrial action? That's what I'm intending to probe this evening with an executive member of the AGMC right here on Lead Story. Saying to myself, you said it all at the top, George. So, yes, welcome to a Lead Story on this Tuesday, almost said Wednesday. The day has been going so fast and the week has been going so fast. Not fast enough for members of the Association of Government Medical Consultants, who are saying that the government needs to do right by an agreement the parties signed concerning retroactive salaries when the public sector restructuring exercise was complete. They're saying that in good faith, the government should follow through with its commitment to pay those monies, and they don't expect the monies to be paid in the next fiscal year. They want it in this period, as they were led to believe, as they were promised. And just to set up the issue for you, in case you've not been paying attention, we presented this perspective.
Medical consultants across the island have withdrawn their services. The industrial action began on Monday with consultants calling in sick in response to unpaid retroactive salaries. An executive member of the Association of Government Medical Consultants, Dr. Merton Smith, explains the retroactive sums were due April 2022 to November 2024 as part of the compensation review.
We, in requesting our payments, were told initially that the ministry would pay us not in this financial year, but in the financial year 2025 to 2026. In a few different tranches. They spread it out over that year, which our members said, no, we're not having that.
A counteroffer from the Ministry of Finance for the sums to be paid within the first quarter of the next financial year, April to June, was also rejected by the medical professionals. Dr. Renee Badreau, president of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, stood in solidarity with consultants, saying the health sector is now in crisis mode without their seniors.
You want to think about how the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Health has allowed this to happen, how their actions have caused this level of instability in the health sector, how the patients are the ones that are being affected, how the patients are the ones that are experiencing the delays of their surgeries, the rescheduling, the cancelling of the clinics, how the morale of the healthcare workers have been dragged through the gullies. And if you have an unhappy and demoralized workforce, they can't serve their patients effectively.
A meeting with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security was held earlier Tuesday. The demand for the payments to be made within the current financial year is imminent, and whether or not strike action will continue is unknown.
The discussions around the table at the Ministry of Labour were not contentious. It was kind of amicable. It doesn't mean that we are seeing eye to eye, but certainly there are enough grounds in the discussion for us to take something back to our members to have a conversation.
The impact of the strike is massive, as the consultant groups are often the managers, clinical specialists, and technical diagnosticians of the health sector. Dr. Smith says one of the greatest challenges is healthcare financing.
We work in the public sector with what is provided for us. Many of us would have trained elsewhere where we have acquired a tremendous amount of skills in different areas. But when we return, because of limitations in what we're provided with, we're not able to offer the Jamaican public the benefits of all the skills that we have acquired.
Courtney Lewis for CVM News.
Thank you, Courtney. After the break, Dr. Merton Smith.
Jamaica, it reach! Introducing the Mother's Rewards app. The same mother's food you love, now at your fingertips. Sign up easy and get a free patty. Earn points whenever you visit any select Mother's location and redeem those same points for discounts later on. Order your favorites for pickup or delivery. No long lines. Plus, win daily to win prizes and discounts. Yes, daily chances to win. No need for say nothing more. Download the Mother's Rewards app now. Mothers, loving every bite.
Come rise with sunrise. Mighty is in the building. We begin with Wednesday's service. We're dissecting the Patois Bible. Then we step into the dance hall corner. We're talking the evolution of dancehall. We'll wrap the show with a little reggae. You've never seen a sunrise quite like this.
Well, in the spirit of not knowing what tomorrow brings, we hope that tomorrow brings better things for those who have serious medical procedures to undergo, and we hope that all is in order for our senior doctors to be back at their workstations. Dr. Merton Smith, good evening, sir.
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers.
Excellent. So, can we report that all is well and that you and your colleagues will be doing what you do best from Wednesday as usual?
Yes, we can report that as of tomorrow, you will notice that the consultants will be present and conducting the usual services that we would offer in the public sector. I think that the Jamaican public will view that as good news.
Excellent. So what happened at the negotiations today? Where did you manage to find common ground with your employer?
So I think the intervention of the Ministry of Labour allowed for the AGMC, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Finance to sit at the table and for each side to lay out all the different aspects, the constraints that we would each have, the expectations that we have as consultants. And remember, we have been saying all along that we have hinged our action on the fact that we were promised that the funds to pay us our retroactive salary was actually allocated for in this financial year based on utterances in Parliament on the 24th of January. And we took that as assurance that we would get our payments in this financial year. And that is why when we got an offer to pay it in multiple portions spread out over the next financial year, our members had to say, that was not reasonable. And even when we got an offer that condensed the period to the first quarter, but not giving a specific date within that first quarter, April to June 2025, we found that based on our past experience, if we don't pin down the ministry to something more specific, then it could be stretched out over the period and even extend beyond that first quarter. Without us being paid the retroactive sums. And that is why the members felt very disheartened. The morale was at an all-time low. And as was reported, about 70% of the consultants in the sector were not at work yesterday. And today was similar.
Yeah. All right, so the payment schedule that has been agreed, there's only one pay bill left in this fiscal year before March 31 and the fiscal year ends and we start afresh with 25-26. So with one pay bill left, will all be paid in one lump sum before March 31?
Well, the discussions that we've had so far, the ministry has stated that based on where they are now in the financial year and the budget cycle, a payment in March is very difficult, if not impossible. However, earlier in the next financial year than stating anytime within the first 3 months is something that we are to go back to the table to discuss and to work out.
So that's the key then, because the original demand from you was to be paid as was advertised before this fiscal year is exhausted. One of the counter proposals was for you to get that payment early in the new fiscal year, preferably in the first quarter, but there was no defined date. So are you saying now that you are happy that there's more definition to the pay period than existed before?
I wouldn't use the word happy, but we are in a better place having come out of the meeting at the Ministry of Labour. And I think one of the points that needs to be made is that sometimes with the conciliation of the Ministry of Labour, it allows the parties to get back to the table to have further discussions, and that is where we're at. Prior to this meeting, much of our communication would have been via letter.
Yes.
And the letters that we had received were pretty firm and inflexible, and as we said, very vague and non-committal. And it's not something that we could, so to speak, take to the bank. And as a result of that, we had to go back. And after this conciliatory meeting, we have decided that we will continue our discussions to pin down a firmer timeline that is more agreeable to all parties.
Yeah, I can imagine those letters that you would have received would have been full of, written in technocrat speak, and so perhaps brusque and, not betraying any emotion in the words, and that would have rubbed your members the wrong way.
That's correct.
Dr. Smith, on the issue, when I heard this issue emerge first, I was surprised because I was saying to a couple of my colleagues that it's rare that you hear the AGMC in any labor dispute with the government. They're a very reasonable group. Nothing much bothers them. They work with the flow. They try to find conciliation. So it was rather surprising that you were forced to take this kind of action in the first place.
And you're absolutely correct. If you look at the history of negotiations with doctors right throughout, over the past maybe 30, 40 years, you would recognize that the AGMC rarely, if ever, had to resort to any kind of action in order to press our demands. But I tell you, sometimes, unfortunately, such easy acquiescence sometimes leads to, taking people for granted and neglecting, and that's sort of how the members felt. And as a result of that, as I said, the morale was at an all-time low, which resulted in what happened yesterday and today.
I'd like to ask a question on behalf of the public, Dr. Smith, because as you would expect, you're still a young man, so you are up with your social media. Social media has been awash with comments by people, and depending on if you have skin in the game, you view the issue a particular way. Those with relatives who were due surgeries, they couldn't be placated because they felt that the doctors were being selfish, while others felt here government goes again, not doing right by their commitment to workers, and government has to hold the blade in this transaction. How much thought goes into industrial action when that impacts people in a real way and has a direct impact on quality of life or even life itself?
Right. So a couple of things that we needed to highlight. So one, you will perhaps have heard that no matter what was happening in terms of elective services, emergency services were uninterrupted. There was no patient that would have turned up at a public health facility or at a university hospital with an emergency who would have been turned away if they required treatment as an emergency. So contingencies were put in place to ensure that all emergencies were dealt with. In addition to that, you will note that the JMD, who are the medical officers grades 1 to 3 and our interns and senior house officers, were at work. And we're seeing patients who were inpatients to make sure that they remain stable. And in many instances, there were discussions taking place between the members of the JMD and the consultant group to make sure that the patients were managed appropriately. So all of that took place. Though I do understand, as you said, that some elective procedures were postponed. And what will happen now is that all efforts will be made to ensure that these patients are rescheduled in a timely manner so that they can have their procedures done. And consideration was given for patients who had urgent cases and cancers during this time.
Hear you on that. Well, thank you for your time. This is only a part of the work that you have to do being done. You still have to go back to continue negotiations for that definitive pay date. But we're happy that you feel well enough to return to work and to go on about the business of providing care for the nation's people who are unwell. Thank you for your work, and all the best to you this evening.
Thank you very much. You're most welcome.
Dr. Merton Smith, he's an executive member, a spokesman for the Association of Government Medical Consultants. The industrial action is over. They'll be back at their workstations effective Wednesday morning.
Familiar faces. I'm kind of fanning out right now.
Big up your audience. I don't have taste.
Yeah.
Guinness at the fridge, Magnum and at the tray. I said the monster them roar. Roar. I was obsessed. And then I sang me the answer. Youngster girl no wanna shy guy. Me just get up in the morning, take them out of me, I brush my teeth and ear bomb me in a one war. I was preparing myself for my great moment that never happened. People used to say me 8 man. That was a reputation that I was given.
But Tana, you beat man body in your song then.
Which man?
Me really want to know if for the people them man did that take set.
Obviously. Like, there's no story there.
The Cut, brought to you by Flo and Rare Nephew.
Now I'm where I want to be.
Sports should be fun. Sports should be interesting. Sports should be entertaining. Sports should be riveting. This is CVM Sports. I'm Jordan Fort.
Well, one of our finest advocates in the courts, Valerie Robertson, checked out on Monday. She was 71, and the legal fraternity has been paying tribute. Those of us in media who worked closely with her are also paying tribute, and Jamaicans who know of her work have also had time, found time to say kind words, good words about Miss Val, as those of us in the media called her, Valerie Robertson QC, if you were to give her her full title. I remember very much as a young reporter tangling with her, reporting something that she never quite felt was accurate and calling to chew me out, but then saying, young man, we will have more encounters in the future, and you'll be better for this experience. And, you know, I certainly think I was. And we got to have a very, very good relationship over the years. And she has gone home to rest. We've invited one of the finest practitioners, Queen's Counsel, Peter Champagny, to reflect on someone he would have worked with significantly over his career. Good evening, QC. Welcome to Lead Story on CVM TV.
Good evening, George, and good evening to your viewers and listeners.
Excellent. Valerie Robertson, who was the woman you saw at close quarters working on behalf of her clients? Tell us about her.
She was a very complex individual. In fact, it's funny that you're starting with that question, because the very last trial that she was involved in also involved myself, and that was defense of the 3 JDF soldiers that were charged in the Keith Clark trial, which took place over months and months. And during that time, I got to know her a bit better. I gained even more respect for her. But she was a complex person, someone who was very steadfast in terms of fixity of purpose as it related to the pursuit of justice for her client. She never backed down from a challenge, and she would be greatly missed. I think the criminal defense bar is the far poorer for the loss that we have suffered as a result of her passing.
You know, the reason I asked for someone at your caliber, of your caliber, QC, to speak to this is because us looking from afar don't understand the sacrifices that someone has to make to work in that specialist area, the pressure that you come under, the labor of love, the conflicts that you grapple with, and ultimately you have to pull everything together, put them aside in a box, and represent your client to the best of your ability. And Valunita Robertson would have been well dyed in the ink of hard work and service to those who paid her to represent their rights in the courts, Mr. Champagne.
That is in fact so, George. In fact, it's a bit more than that, actually. Being a female and at the top of your game, especially at the criminal bar, requires you almost, I think, to have that kind of rough exterior. And sometimes, you know, it is very challenging because we still live in a world, unfortunately, where there is no parity in terms of gender, and especially in this particular role. And Valerie rose to the occasion. She was a force to be reckoned with. Someone that I had great admiration for in terms of her strength and her, you know, as I said before, not ever backing down, irrespective of, you know, instances where she pushed the boundaries almost. I mean, love her or hate her, you had to respect her craft.
Yes. I remember asking eminent counsel Gordon Robinson once, we were playing some music, and I said to him, well, you know, who are the best attorneys that you would have met over your career? And he gave me a very Gordon Robinson-esque answer to say, you can't rate people like that. And people have their strengths, people have certain qualities, and just like you have horses for courses, you have some attorneys who are very comfortable, who revel in certain circumstances. I say all that to ask that apart from her tenacity, the fact that you said that she was a boundary pusher, a line tower, trying to extract every advantage she could get. In your time working with her and knowing of her work, quintessentially, what would you say Valunita Robertson was, or who was she as an advocate?
She was the quintessential person as an advocate in terms of being fearless. She was the quintessential person in terms of believing in her case and believing in what she felt was right. There was no doubt in her mind as to her purpose, and she was not afraid, never afraid, to challenge anyone who, in her view, stood in the way of justice as she perceived it. She was phenomenal.
Lastly, counsel, one of the youngsters, one of my friends who has passed through your hand, gotten guidance from you, worked in your chamber, said to me that one of the sad things about what has happened with Valunita Robertson at 71, I mean, 2025, you don't expect people to check out at 71, but he said that she always spoke about retirement, and she never got to enjoy that. And he says that so many attorneys, because of the nature of the job, you never really get to walk away and watch it, admire it from afar. And I can imagine that if we could ask her, perhaps she would say that that's one of her regrets, not having the sweet taste of retirement to look back on what she achieved over the course of her career.
You know, George, I find it interesting that you have made that comment, because it's something that plagues us as persons, especially at the criminal bar. It's a job that, it's not a job, it's a craft, it's a skill. If you apply it, it becomes a part of you, it becomes a priority. Sometimes your family takes a back role in terms of this. So it is very stressful. It is something that once you love it and once you practice it as a craft, as a skill, you are bound to be affected by this in terms of retirement. You don't see that. And that was Valerie for you.
Hear you on that. Thank you very much for your time this evening, counsel, and I wish you and your colleagues all the best.
Thank you very much for having me.
Excellent. Queen's Counsel Peter Champagne, they're reflecting on Valerie Nita Robertson, member of the criminal bar who has died. She was 71, Wilma's old girl. She was conferred the title with the honor of Queen's Counsel in 2016 and has been a part of some of the biggest cases in Jamaica over the last 30 years. An attorney for 47 years, 3 years shy of 50. And she advocated her last case on Monday. That's the program for this evening. I make way now for the news at 7.
Rise with sunrise. Mighty is in the building. We begin with Wednesday service. We're dissecting the Patois Bible. Then we step into the dance hall corner. We're talking the evolution of dancehall. We'll wrap the show with a little reggae. You've never seen a sunrise quite like this.
Two familiar faces. I'm kind of fanning out right now.
Big up your audience. But I have taste.
Yeah.
Guinness at the fridge, Magnum and at the tray. I said the monster them roar. Roar. I was obsessed. And then I sang me the answer. Youngster girl no wanna shy guy. Me just get up in the morning, take them out of me, I brush my teeth and ear bomb me in a war. I was preparing myself for my great moment that never happened. People used to say me 8 man. That was a reputation that I was given.
But Tana, you beat man body in your song then.
Which man?
Me really want to know if for the people them man did that take set.
Obviously. I'm like, there's no story there.
The Cut, brought to you by Flo and Rare Nephew.
Now I'm where I want to be.
CVM TV and live Jamaica Premier League action on a Monday night. A match made in heaven. We call it Monday Match Night. Catch all the hard-pounding JPL Monday night action from now until the end of the season on CVM TV's Monday Match Night. Matchday Mondays at 7:45 to 5 p.m. with rebroadcast Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Nothing else can quite match up. Monday Match Night, powered by Sunshine Snacks and ABC Electrical.